Biman Bangladesh Airlines, partly transcribed from English into Bengali and the other way around, commonly known as Biman, is the flag carrier of Bangladesh. Its main hub is at Shahjalal International Airport in Dhaka, and it also operates flights from its secondary hubs at Shah Amanat International Airport in Chittagong and Osmani International Airport in Sylhet. The airline provides international passenger and cargo services to its destinations. As of April 2015, it has air service agreements with 42 countries, but flies to just 16 of them. The airline's headquarters, Balaka Bhaban, is located in Kurmitola, Dhaka. Annual Hajj flights, transporting tourists and non-resident Bangladeshi workers and migrants, and the activities of its subsidiaries form an integral part of the airline's business. The carrier is currently facing stiff competition from a number of domestic Bangladeshi private airlines as well as some international carriers, which offer greater flexibility, targeting Bangladesh's air transport sector, which is experiencing an 8% annual growth rate, thanks to a large number of tourists and non-resident Bangladeshi travelers. Created in February 1972, Biman enjoyed an internal monopoly in the aviation industry of Bangladesh until 1996. In the decades following its founding, the airline expanded its fleet and destinations, but it was adversely affected by corruption and mismanagement. At its peak, Biman operated flights to 29 international destinations, extending from New York City in the west to Tokyo in the east. The airline was wholly owned and managed by the government of Bangladesh until the 23rd of July 2007, when it was transformed into the country's largest public limited company by the caretaker government of Bangladesh. Since becoming a public limited company in 2007, the airline has reduced staff and begun to modernize its fleet. The airline has made a deal with Boeing for 10 new aircraft along with options for 10 more. Biman Bangladesh Airlines is certified as safe to fly in Europe by the European Aviation Safety Agency, and it also successfully passed the IATA operational safety audit, and since then, the airline has resumed flights to some of its previous destinations in Asia and Europe. History. Biman Bangladesh Airlines was established on 4 January 1972 as Bangladesh's national airline under the Bangladesh Biman Ordinance. The initiative to launch the flag carrier was taken by 2,500 former employees, including 10 Boeing 707 commanders and 7 other pilots of Pakistan International Airlines, who submitted a proposal to the government on the 31st of December 1971 following the independence of Bangladesh. The airline was initially called Air Bangladesh but was soon changed to its current name. On 4 February 1972, Biman started its domestic services, initially linking Dhaka with Chittagong, Jessore and Sylhet, using a single Douglas DC-3 acquired from India. Following the crash of this DC-3 on 10 February 1972, near Dhaka, during a test flight, 2 Fokker F-27s belonging to Indian Airlines and supplied by the Indian government entered the fleet as a replacement. Shortly afterwards, additional capacity was provided with the incorporation of a Douglas DC-6, loaned by the World Council of Churches, which was in turn replaced with another Douglas DC-6, a DC-6B model lease from Troll Air, to operate the Dhaka-Calcutta route. On 4 March 1972, Biman started its international operations with a weekly flight to London using a Boeing 707 chartered from British Caledonian. The short-haul fleet was supplemented by a Fokker F-27 from India on 3 March 1972. The aircraft was employed on a daily scheduled flight between Calcutta and Dhaka on 28 April 1972. 3 additional Fokker F-27s were acquired during March and September of that year. In the first year of operation, Biman operated 1,079 flights carrying just over 380,000 passengers. 4 Fokker F-27s joined the fleet in 1973, enabling Biman to double the frequency of the Kolkata flight to a twice-daily service. A Boeing 707 was added to the fleet in September and the flight to London became twice weekly, while a Chittagong-Kolkata flight also began operating. In 1974, operations were extended to Kathmandu, Bangkok and Dubai. In 1976, Biman sold 2 of its Fokker F-27s and bought another Boeing 707 to extend international services to Abu Dhabi, Karachi and Mumbai. Singapore was added to Biman's list of international destinations when a third Boeing 707 was purchased in February 1977, followed by Jeddah, Doha and Amsterdam the following year, which also saw the purchase of its fourth Boeing 707. In 1977, Biman was converted into a public sector corporation to be governed by a board of directors appointed by the government. The airline broke even for the first time in 1977-78 and made a profit the following year. International destinations expanded to include Kuala Lumpur, Athens, Muscat and Tripoli in 1979, followed by Yangon, Tokyo and Dhaka in 1980. Biman took delivery of its first 85-seater Fokker F-28-4000 in 1981. In 1983, 3 Douglas DC-10s joined the fleet and the airline started to phase out the Boeing 707s. The flight network expanded further to include Baghdad, Paris and Bahrain. On 5 August 1984, Biman faced its worst accident ever when a Fokker F-27 flying in from Chittagong crashed near Dhaka, killing all 49 on board. The long-haul fleet was then supplemented by the purchase of 2 new Airbus A310s in 1996, followed by the addition of 2 more in 2000, from Singapore Airlines and Air Jamaica, and another in 2003. Corporate Affairs. Key people as of June 2016. The chairman position is held by Shahjalal Mohammed Anamal Bari, A.M. Mossadegh Ahmed is the managing director and chief executive officer. Kevin John Steele, who served as MD and CEO of Biman from March 2013 to April 2014, was the first foreign national in the airline's history to be appointed CEO and MD of Biman. He was chosen from a pool of 42 local and foreign candidates after a competitive selection process. Steele is a British citizen who has many years of experience working in management and administrative positions at British Airways and other airlines around the world. Steele resigned to Biman's MD and CEO positions in December 2013 citing health issues. Steele left office on the 19th of April 2014. Kyle Hayward took office as Biman's MD and CEO on 5 January 2015. A British national, Hayward was the second foreign national to hold the airline's CEO position after Kevin Steele. Ownership. The airline was wholly owned by the Bangladeshi government through the Bangladesh Biman Corporation since its inception. In 1977, Biman was converted into a public sector corporation which afforded Biman limited autonomy, led by a government-appointed board of directors. The authorized share capital was increased to 2 billion Bangladeshi takas in 1987, and Biman was transformed into a public limited company, the largest in Bangladesh, in 2007. Privatization. 1980s. During the late 1980s, Hussain Mohammad Ershad, president of Bangladesh at the time, served as president of Biman. After an early period of expansion and growth, Biman entered an era of nosediving profits and slow growth, exacerbated by incompetent and corrupt management who padded purchases, falsified repair bills, and kept unprofitable routes in operation for political reasons. Research conducted in 1996 found that Biman had 5,253 non-flying personnel, 30% more than Singapore Airlines, a carrier who operated a fleet almost 10 times the size of Biman's. The report described Biman as poorly managed, overstaffed, undercapitalized, and subject to excessive political interference in its day-to-day management. 1990s. In the 1992-93 fiscal year, accounts under the Ministry of Civil Aviation and Tourism revealed that 22 million Bangladeshi takas in tax was not paid to the government. The audit carried out in 1999 also showed that Biman was owed 2.2 million Bangladeshi takas by travel agents from the proceeds of ticket sales, most likely with the collusion of Biman officials. Additionally, 2.4 million Bangladeshi takas was overpaid as incentive commissions to the sales agents in violation of Biman policies. In 2007, the caretaker government launched an anti-corruption drive. This was shortly followed by the forced retirement of 35 other employees and officials, some of whom were close aides of Shah Iskandar. In 2008, Iskandar, younger brother of former Premier Khaleda Zia, was sent to jail over charges of concealing information regarding his wealth and not for his connection with Biman. Faced with growing losses from the late 1990s onwards, the government offered 40% of Biman to foreign airlines in 2004, hoping a buyer would take over the management of the carrier. However, the proposal demanded that many decision-making rights remain within the Bangladesh government, and the offer was ignored by outside airlines. A similar initiative in 1998 cost Biman $1.6 million in consultancy fees with no positive results. 2000s. In the 2005-06 fiscal year, Biman carried 1.15 million passengers, a growth of 70% over the previous decade. With the rise of private domestic carriers in Bangladesh, however, Biman's market share for domestic passengers dropped by 35% over the previous 10 years average, with only 162,000 passengers traveling with Biman in the domestic sector in the 2005-06 fiscal year. During the same period, Biman reported its biggest annual loss of over $120 million, with a $100 million loss reported the following year. Biman also fell behind on millions of dollars in payments to its fuel supplier, the Bangladesh Petroleum Corporation, with debts that rose to 15.64 billion Bangladeshi takas in late December 2006. Public Limited Company. In May 2007, the caretaker government approved plans to turn Biman into a public limited company with shareholdings split between 7 public sector organizations. As a part of the restructuring, the government put in place a voluntary retirement scheme to reduce the man-equipment ratio of 367 to 1. The industry average at the time was 200 to 1, and other Asian airlines operated with MERS of about 150 to 1. The VRS provided compensation based on length of service, at a cost to the government of over 2.97 billion Bangladeshi takas borrowed from the World Bank. Biman management expected to reduce its workforce by 1,600, but 2,162 applications were received, many from employees who expected to be dismissed with little or no severance pay if the quote quota was not met. Biman accepted between 1,863 and 1,877 applications, and affirmed that key personnel would not be allowed to leave the organization via VRS. On the 23rd of July 2007, Biman Bangladesh Airlines became the largest public limited company in Bangladesh. Earlier suggestions that the airline should be renamed Bangladesh Airlines were rejected. The government is the sole shareholder of the 1.5 billion shares, but intends to offer 49% to the private sector while retaining majority ownership. The previous managing director, Dr. Abdul Momen, was appointed as the chief executive officer and managing director of the new organization. The 6 directors were appointed from the ministries of Energy, Commerce, Finance, Civil Aviation, Foreign Affairs, and the Cabinet Division, with the Cabinet Secretary taking on the role as chairman of the board of directors. The 6 secretaries and a joint secretary to the Civil Aviation Ministry were made the 7 shareholders of the new PLC. In September 2008, the government appointed Air Commodore Zad Qadis to replace Dr. Momen as CEO. From 2002 to 2005, Qadis had been chair of the Civil Aviation Authority of Bangladesh, before which he had held various posts in the Bangladesh Air Force. Following the privatization, an initiative was launched by ex-Biman employees who left the organization via the VRS to set up a competing airline. Names proposed for the airline included Air Bangla International, Biman Employees Airlines and Balaka. They were joined by previous managing directors of Biman, along with the former president of the Bangladesh Airline Pilots Association. However, nothing further was heard of regarding the proposed venture. The airline made profits in FY 2007-08 and FY 2008-09. In FY 2009-10, however, the carrier incurred in a net loss of 800 million Bangladeshi takis, 2010s. In FY 2010-11 it made losses of 2 billion Bangladeshi takis, despite the government exempting it to debt of about 11.94 billion Bangladeshi takis and 5.73 billion Bangladeshi takis owed to the BPC and the CAAB, respectively. In FY 2011-12 it made a loss of 6.06 billion Bangladeshi takis. In FY 2012-13 unaudited figures show a loss of 2 billion Bangladeshi takis. The airline plans to be fully profitable by FY 2014-15. As of December 2013, Biman owed 15.60 billion Bangladeshi takis to different sources, of which 3,676.2 million Bangladeshi takis to CAAB and 8.50 billion Bangladeshi takis to Padma Oil Company, its fuel supplier. Biman made a profit of 2.72 billion Bangladeshi takis in FY 2014-15. Subsidiaries. Biman's subsidiaries are associated with aircraft ground handling, aviation engineering, aviation training and flight catering. There are 5 wholly owned subsidiaries, including, since 1972, BGH provides ground handling services for all airports in Bangladesh. The company reported a profit of 4.5 billion Bangladeshi takis for the FY 2011-12. The wholly owned subsidiary BFCC was set up in 1989 to provide in-flight meals. It is one of Biman's profitable operations, supplying food to Saudia Etihad, Malaysia Airlines, Thai Airways, Emirates, Dragon Air, China Southern Airlines and Regent Airways, along with casual orders from other airlines operating into Bangladesh. The BFCC consumes 90% 80% of the eggs and chickens from the BPC, another profit-making subsidiary of Biman formed in 1976 and put into operation in November 1980 to rear poultry at farms in Dhaka. Bird flu was detected at one of the farms in March 2007, and many of the birds were culled. This was the first incident of bird flu in Bangladesh. Services. Biman is notable for disruptions to its flight schedule and poor customer service. In 2007, Biman faced strong criticism from major international airports including London Heathrow Airport and Dubai International Airport for its failure to maintain flight schedules. Heathrow Airport operator BAA wrote Biman providing evidence which showed Biman had not achieved the minimum 80% usage of its allocated landing slots at Heathrow, as required by EU and International Air Transport Association regulations. During the summer of 2007, Biman should therefore not expect slot allocations at Heathrow for the summer of 2008 and should look to Stansted at Gatwick airports if it wished to continue serving London. Following discussions with BAA, however, Biman obtained landing slots for the summer of 2008 on condition that it achieved 80% usage. Delays continued unabated, and in September 2008, Biman's Dhaka-London direct flight utilizing a DC-10 aircraft was diverted and landed at Gatwick when it did not have sufficient fuel to remain in a holding pattern over Heathrow following arrival over 3 hours after the scheduled time. In a 10 September 2008 article published in The Times, Biman was labeled the worst performer for punctuality at Heathrow, with flights delayed on average by 3 hours. In 2008, the United Nations advised its staff not to fly with Biman, citing both safety and security concerns and Biman's unreliable flight schedules. It was made clear that UN staff who flew with Biman did so at their own risk, and would be ineligible to make claims on insurance. Biman's then newly appointed managing director said he was unaware of the UN directive, but admitted that Biman did face problems in managing its flight schedules. He expected the situation to improve with the procurement of aircraft in the coming months. In 2013, Biman signed agreements with SITA and Mercator to provide infrastructure support and revenue accounting services to the airline. In 2014, Biman launched advanced seat reservation system on its website. The airline also offers online meal selection option, where the passenger can choose from diabetic meals, vegetarian meals, Asian vegetarian meal, child meal and Muslim meal that will be served on board. Flight classes A2 class service is operated on all of Biman's airliners. The business class cabin on its Boeing 777 are arranged in a 2-3-2 configuration, while economy class cabin is set up in a 3-3-3 configuration. The narrow-body Boeing 737-800S business class is set up in a 2-2 configuration, while economy class is in a 3-3 arrangement. The older Airbus A310s have a 2-4-2 configuration in economy class, 2-3-2 in business class. In-flight amenities. Biman relaunched its in-flight magazine rebranded as Bihama in September 2013. The bi-monthly magazine, previously known as Diganta, and prior to that Jatri, is published by Subcontinental Media Group. The magazine is available in both Bengali and English, covering topics about Bangladesh and Biman's destinations. English and Bengali language newspapers are also available on board in the aircraft. The newer Boeing 777s are equipped with modern in-flight entertainment. Every seat is fitted with personal touchscreen displays provided by Thales. It is loaded with movies, songs and games. It also has high-resolution moving maps and live flight information. It is in 2 languages, English and Bengali. Biman launched in-flight duty-free sales in March 2014, branded as Biman Boutique. The duty-free products include perfumes, cosmetics, jewelries, watches, children's gifts, chocolate and tobacco. In 2014, Biman launched a amenity kit for children on board which include coloring books, stationery, dolls and jigsaw puzzle. Frequent flyer program. Biman launched a frequent flyer program named Biman Loyalty Club. In November 2013, it offers rewards such as tiered benefits, mileage bonuses, extra baggage, lounge access and priority check-in at airports. As of July 2014, the frequent flyer program had 8,000 members. Ticketing. An agreement was signed with Amadeus in 2007 to upgrade Biman's ticketing system with an e-ticketing solution to comply with IATA rules, which set out a deadline of the 31st of December 2007 for all member airlines to switch over the ticketing systems. E-ticketing has enabled major airlines to provide online check-in facilities, reducing the need to queue up at check-in counters. However, Biman has not made any attempts to improve customer service through the adoption of e-ticketing, although it has been able to reduce its own costs. In 2005, Biman had briefly stopped using the Amadeus ticketing system when the government suspended the operation of a local Amadeus subsidiary following a court order, after allegations of money laundering. The suspension, however, lasted only a month, and was lifted after the writ was appealed in the High Court. In 2013, Biman signed an agreement with German e-ticketing company Hahn Air, enabling Biman's tickets to be purchased from anywhere around the world. Biman Cargo. Biman also operates a cargo service using the cargo holds of its passenger aircraft to ship freight to international destinations. It has established cargo village at Shahjalal International Airport where the cargo is packaged and labeled before being loaded onto its aircraft. While the air cargo industry in Bangladesh grew by 16.5% in the fiscal year 2003-04, Biman's cargo operations remain stagnant when private operators such as Bismillah Airlines, Best Aviation and Air Bangladesh produced a 108% growth from the previous year. The private operators increased their share of the cargo market by 10.6% and were responsible for handling 24% of the total 99,000 tons of cargo, at the expense of both Biman and foreign airlines, which saw a reduction in the shares by 4.6% and 6.0% respectively. Foreign airlines handled 47% of the total cargo, with Biman taking on the remaining 29%. As with its passenger service and management, corruption has also been rife at Biman Cargo. An investigation in 2004 uncovered irregularities in a number of Biman's Middle East operations which deprived the government of millions of dollars in revenue. Biman officials in Dubai were found to have been extending special privileges to the main freight handler in exchange for bribes. The smuggling of foreign currency and gold bars is reported to have taken place at the Biman Cargo Village by Biman and CAAB employees. A number of arrests were made, but the perpetrators evaded punishment through lack of evidence and pressure from the CAAB union.